Give the stream a couple of seconds to breathe here. Make sure that everything is nice and stable all across the YouTube platform. Make sure that our live stream is officially good to go here. Let's see. Just got to make sure that we are officially live because we had some issues here. Perfect. Looks like we are live. All right, Broncos country. So the Denver Broncos get their first preseason win over the Indianapolis Colts, 34-30. It was a game filled with, quite frankly, some good, some bad, and some ugly. The good, of course, being the play of Bo Nix. Bo Nix played very well. He was efficient. He was crisp. He was making good decisions out there. He was throwing the ball where it needed to be thrown. Couple of inaccurate passes towards the beginning, but he really settled in. Started off 2 for 6, ended up finishing 15 for 21 passing. I will definitely call that a win in terms of how Bo Nix played. Obviously, the bad and the ugly were the false starts and the other pre-snap penalties that we had. Had some holding calls as well, not great. And then the ugly turnovers. Cannot have those turnovers. They ended up leading to points for the Colts. And it helped the Colts kind of linger around in this game well longer than they should have. So you cannot have those stupid turnovers. Dropped passes from both Samaje Perine and Lucas Kroll that ended up going the other way. Then, of course, Audric Estime had that fumble. Those are all things that need to get cleaned up over the course of camp. But Denver was able to force some turnovers of their own. The interception by Keidron Smith, the strip sack fumble there from Dondre Tillman, the recovery from, I believe it was Matt Henningsen. That was all really good to see. But, of course, at the end of the day, you still have to clean up some of the other sloppiness in terms of the turnovers. But on the whole, very positive stuff to take away from this game. The turnovers and the penalties can all be cleaned up in the classroom. They can all be cleaned up on field during training camp. So I'm not overtly concerned about that. I thought that all three quarterbacks played good games today. Jarrett Stidham kind of had limited action, but I thought he played well. Obviously, Bo played well. And then Zach Wilson also played well with the third stringers. So today I would call a very successful day for the Denver Broncos. We'll go ahead and break down the stats from the game and all of that stuff here in just 1 second. And we will also bring in Sean Payton's post-game presser. We'll upload the presser separately on the channel as well. But let's go ahead and bring in some of the stats here. Before we do that, we got Rodney in the house and we've got D-Rock in the house. Good to see both of you guys. Bringing in... All right, sorry, just got to transition scenes here. There we go. Bringing in the stats from today's game, starting off with Bo Nix. He went 15 for 21 passing with 125 yards and the touchdown on that little flat out route there to Marvin Mims. That was a really, really good performance from Bo Nix. Zach Wilson also was dealing 10 for 13 for 117 yards. I thought he made some really impressive throws out there. And then Jarrett Stidham, 4 for 7, 37 yards. And then the interception that was not his fault. That was the dropped pass by Samaje Perine, who was wide open on a wheel route and ended up bobbling the ball, and it ended up going the other way. A very unfortunate play. And on top of that, Samaje Perine also had a hand in Ben Powers getting injured. Not intentionally, of course, but Samaje Perine collided with Ben Powers, and Powers ended up injuring his shoulder. It remains to be seen what that injury is going to entail in terms of how long Powers misses. But not a good day for Samaje Perine in the slightest today. And it was only worse by the fact that Audric Estime played a relatively good game outside of that fumble, of course. He had 10 carries for 31 yards and a touchdown. Blake Watson had a rushing touchdown today, and so did Tyler Beatty. So 3 total rushing touchdowns for the Denver Broncos. I thought overall Jaleel McLaughlin was probably the most efficient guy on the ground in the backfield. 7 carries for 30 yards, 4.3 yards per carry. I thought that he was good. Bo Nix also showed off the wheels a couple of times, once on a read option, once on a scramble drill. My favorite play that Bo Nix made today was to Cortland Sutton. It was that scramble left, and then Sutton stayed with him the whole time, and he was able to find Sutton on the sideline. It was a perfect throw by Bo, leading Sutton low where only he could catch it. Sutton had 2 catches for 35 yards on the day. Blake Watson had a catch for 33 yards. Lucas Kroll, 4 catches for 31 yards. He had that drop that led to a turnover right before the 2-minute drill, or the first crack at the 2-minute drill, I should say. And then he was effective when they gave him the opportunity in the 2-minute drill afterwards. But unfortunately, Lucas Kroll did injure his toe. He exited the game on a cart, was able to return to the sideline in street clothes. So hopefully it's not a very serious injury for Lucas Kroll, possibly a turf toe type of thing that he's dealing with there. Hunter Campmore, 3 catches for 29 yards. Jaleel, 2 catches for 26 yards. Brandon Johnson, 2 catches, 22 yards. Marvin Mims, 2 catches for 17 yards and a touchdown. David Sills, 2 catches for 15 yards. Tim Patrick, 1 catch for 14 yards. Audric Estime, 3 catches for 13 yards. Josh Reynolds, 1 catch for 11. And then so on and so forth. I'm not going to continue to read all of that. But overall, again, when you throw out the penalties and you throw out the turnovers, which will get cleaned up in camp this week, I'd say it was a successful day offensively. Defensively, they were lights out, especially in the first 3 quarters. Kind of the second half of the third quarter, the end of the fourth quarter, the defense kind of started to let up on giving some points up. Obviously, they gave up 7 points there in the third quarter and then 13 points in the fourth quarter. But before that, completely lights out. One of the touchdowns that Indy scored in the first half was off of a turnover. It was off of that Lucas Kroll drop. So overall, again, very, very good stuff there, both offensively and defensively from the guys that are ultimately going to be out there playing come game day. Defensively, really good stuff. There were some fumbles today, obviously. Lucas Kroll, Audric Estime, Zach Wilson had that fumbled snap there. Really clutch play. I believe it was Alex Forsyth that got back on that ball, or it might have been Sam Mustipher. I can't remember. But really clutch play to get back on top of that ball there, because that was kind of concerning for Denver. Yeah, man, overall, just some turnover stuff that really needs to get cleaned up. Leading tackler on the day, Lavelle Bailey, the undrafted rookie out of Fresno State. Keep an eye on him as the possible guy who could make the active roster come week 1 out of the undrafted guys. Keydron Smith had an interception. It was Jonah Ellis who had pressure, forced an errant ball from Sam Ellinger, and Keydron Smith was Johnny on the spot, so a good tandem defensive play right there. And big kick return from Jalen Virgil. Tyler Beatty had a nice return, Traymon Smith, so good stuff from the return game. Will Lutz was perfect on the day. Riley Dixon, 2 punts for 97 yards, had a 59-yard punt that helped pin Indianapolis back deep. So overall, man, lots of good stuff today. Just like Bobby says in the chat, Alex Singleton was all over the place and looked great today. He was making open field tackles left and right. He was all over the ball. The run defense was something very positive to take away from the day, especially the first and second team unit, and that was without guys like Zach Allen and John Franklin Myers. Once those guys get back in the fold, could you imagine that the run defense can look even better than it was today? But I was still impressed with guys like Matt Henningsen, Angelo Blackson, DJ Jones, Malcolm Roach was awesome today. The defensive line, one of the big highlights of the day. And the edge rush room started off a little slow, but we ultimately did see some plays from guys like Jonah Ellis and then Dondre Tillman there with that strip stack on Jason Bean, a quarterback for the Colts who, I'm going to be honest, I've never even heard of before. But that is something that I think we can take away from the game and be like, all right, very positive stuff there. Young safeties, I thought that Devon Key had a decent game. JL Skinner had a really good game today. We're going to see an even better look at how well those guys played as soon as the All-22 comes out. I imagine that that's going to happen here within the next couple of days. I feel like Wilson definitely played better than Stidham. Ben Fry says, even if it was against third stringers, credit to where it was due with Zach Wilson, because he did play very well today. I know that the Broncos still like Stidham a lot, so I don't know if he's done enough to earn the QB2 job ahead of Jarrett Stidham, but Zach Wilson played very well today. I have zero complaints with how he played. All 3 quarterbacks, I thought, played well today. Stidham, I thought, could have maybe used a little bit more of an extended look. But I also know that the Broncos wanted to get Bo Nix some snaps with the first-team offense, which they did. So that's why Stidham had more of a limited look. he's going to be running with the 2s next week as Bo Nix gets the opportunity to run with the 1s as the starter against the Green Bay Packers. So that is when I think we're going to see more from Stidham and kind of get this backup quarterback battle solved here between Zach Wilson and Jarrett Stidham. But based on what we saw today from Bo, obviously it was just one game, but when you combine that with his full body of work, both this offseason program as well as in training camp, Bo Nix is in line to be the Week 1 starter against the Seattle Seahawks for the Broncos. I was listening to 9 News earlier during halftime, and it was suggested by former Bronco Orlando Franklin that Bo Nix sits for the first 5 games. They ramp him in with a few packages during the next 5 games, and after those first 10 games, then you name Bo Nix the starter. I don't agree with that philosophy whatsoever. I personally feel like Bo Nix is already ready because he handles the pre-snap operation so well. He was identifying the Mike linebacker today, making sure everybody was set. He was setting the protections today, which is absolutely huge. And then post-snap, he's looking off safeties with his eyes. If you'll remember the deep ball to Josh Reynolds, which Reynolds ultimately dropped, it was a perfect throw from Bo Nix, and he manipulated the safety with his eyes in order to make that throw open. That's elite high-level quarterback play. So if Bo Nix is already executing that stuff at a high level, then there's nothing to benefit from sitting Bo Nix. If he's already executing that stuff, then you can comfortably throw him out there, and even if he throws an interception or 2, those are all learning opportunities, and Bo isn't going to have his confidence shot if he goes out there and throws interceptions. You sit young quarterbacks because they're not ready to play, because they can't handle the pre-snap operation. They can't actually physically get the ball snapped without problems. We saw Zach Wilson today. He ended up forcing Sean Payton to burn a timeout because he couldn't get the play out and he couldn't get the huddle broken in a timely manner. So that's something that we don't see Bo Nix struggling with. He hasn't had issues with it once in training camp, and he didn't have any issues with it today. So that is why I am confident with starting Bo Nix Week 1. He's already doing stuff operationally like a veteran quarterback does. He doesn't look like an ordinary rookie out there. Yes, he's still maybe making the occasional rookie mistake or 2, but that doesn't mean that he shouldn't start, because he's got all the basic stuff that you need to have mastered. I'm not going to say completely mastered, but almost mastered, and that gives me the confidence to go out there and throw him out there Week 1. But when it comes to Zach Wilson and Jarrett Stidham, again, not to take away from how well they played today, Zach Wilson was 10 for 13 through the air. He didn't have a bad throw out there that I charted. I thought Zach Wilson was really good today. So all the credit goes to him. I know I've been very harsh on him throughout the course of training camp because he hasn't really played well during training camp, but if he can put together some good preseason tape, then Zach Wilson could easily make a case to be QB2 here in Denver. If not, maybe increase his trade value and the Broncos could flip him for a draft pick. I could very easily see something like that, but I do know that the Broncos want to keep 3 quarterbacks with the new 3rd quarterback rule. So I do think that Zach Wilson got a good chance to make the 53-man roster for the Denver Broncos, and he might even make it as QB2 with how well he has played. Stidham's going to get a more extended look against Green Bay, so we're really going to have a good grasp of that competition in that Green Bay game. So, yeah, man, overall, a lot of positive things to take away from this performance for sure. I want to get on Twitter here and see if Sean Payton is at the podium yet, because I will go ahead and bring in Sean if he's... Yes, he is at the podium. Okay, guys, let's go ahead and bring in Sean Payton.
I would say, the 2 younger...
blah, blah, blah. There we go.
Those are the things that...
all right, here's Sean
you just
Payton.
Got to make sure you clean up. And those guys will learn from it. Overall, they've been pretty consistent in camp, encouraged. There's still obviously a lot of work for those guys to do. Man. But, man, they all show that they can find a way to contribute. Now it's cleaning up some of the other things, but I have been encouraged. Pretty good. I thought pretty good. That was the one thing that was most important. Get ready. It's an early start time, really kind of 11 o'clock our time, which is close to when we've been practicing. But we flew in last night late. You don't get many, 1 o'clock Eastern preseason games. For me, it's fine that it's on Sunday. All of our games are on Sunday, so it's the 7-day stretch between them fits in the schedule pretty clean.
On Sunday.
When you have a player who puts the ball on the ground, is there any value, like with Lucas scrolling and getting the ball back?
Yeah, when I get over being upset with them, so there's a time there. But those are lessons, and pretty soon, then they're lessons that can't happen. And
this is the time.
And
where
that was
can
something
happen,
I
but they need to be
talked about
up.
last night. I told the coaches that that's one concern I have. Is the ball security in this game coming in, and it kind of manifested kind of how I thought. Unfortunately, I mean they do a good job of holding players up, stripping the ball. That was Audrich's, turnover. We had the exchange problem late in the game, and then obviously those are things that you hope to be cleaning up before the regular season starts.
You have an injury update on Lucas Scrolls?
Yeah, he's got a toe.
Not serious.
No, it's a toe.
When you look at the chemistry of the team, who would you say is emerges as a leader?
It's a great question. I asked the coaches. I mean, it's evolving. I don't know that I have your answer, but I had that same question for the offense and defensive coaches.
Love to hear what the question was.
You have to give them some guys to go to the coin toss, and I hadn't even discussed it. And so we sent, each week we'll change that up. But I think with a young team, I'm anxious to see when we finish this and head into week one, how they see their leadership. I think there's a number of guys that are stepping up in that role, but there are a number of former captains that are no longer here. So it's kind of it's something I think organically will take care of itself. But I think it's the same question I asked our staff about 3.5 hours ago.
Last year, your joint practice was in the third week. You didn't play your starters much in the game. How will that work?
Was it week 3 or the Rams was week 3? So we'll we only have one practice Friday, and then we'll get to the roles and how we're going to play guys in this game. So it's week 2.
Starters will play.
Yeah. He'll get more next week. I mean, all of that, those guys they're doing a good job of handling the competition. They really are. And they're taking advantage of the reps they're getting when they're in. And they're focused on, like, putting their best stuff together on tape when they're in the game, all three of them. And so, those numbers will unfold a little differently next weekend. We'll see, on Sunday at home.
Sean, there's been this suspension with Devontae from training camp to show some shape. You put him at the top of the depth chart. He started today. What do you foresee from him moving forward as far as the role expanding, getting bigger? Is there anything that you're about him not being able to?
No, I think that I said this. I told this story when we were in draft meetings, and I went back and I had him put on his college tape, and he was in the locker room. I called him in and I said, "This is the runner I want." And so that player that I saw was versatile, outside, inside, and I think we've seen that from him in camp. I'm encouraged with his progress, and obviously he's healthier, but he's having a good camp. All good? Thanks.
All right, so that is Sean Payton following preseason week 1 against the Indianapolis Colts. Much like we expected, Sean was not happy whatsoever about the penalties. I don't think anybody was happy about the penalties or the turnovers. It's all stuff that's going to have to get cleaned up, and it's all stuff that hopefully will be cleaned up. If not, then the Broncos are going to have some problems with ball security heading into week 1. It's just those self-inflicted wounds with false starts, pre-snap stuff, holding, jumping off sides. That's all preventable stuff. It's all stuff that doesn't have to happen and ultimately can cost you football games. the Broncos were lucky today that the Colts also made some mistakes, because they could have easily saw this game get away from them. They could have very easily saw that happen. And yes, it's just preseason, but at the end of the day, you still want to stack momentum from these preseason games, and you don't want that bad juju to carry over into the regular season. It's got to stay here in the preseason. These stupid turnovers that lead to points for the other team. Obviously, Lucas Kroll's, I believe it was, or no, it was Audric Estime's that was run back for a touchdown, and then the rest of them put the Colts in position to kick field goals. So those turnovers all ultimately led to points for the Indianapolis Colts. This could have been a much wider margin of victory had the Broncos not committed those turnovers. And then again, the false starts and the holding at the beginning of the game. That's all stuff that just needs to be cleaned up. So all of the positive stuff from Bo Nix and the run defense and the run game, all that stuff is great, and I think we're all going to relish in that positive stuff. But for me, the bigger takeaway for this game really is the penalties and the turnovers. And what I'm going to be watching in the joint practice with Green Bay as well as the game against Green Bay is, are these turnovers eliminated? Are these turnovers eliminated? Are the Broncos more efficient when it comes to ball security? Are they able to eliminate these stupid penalties? I'm going to be looking for no false starts, no pre-snap infractions during this Green Bay game. That's all stuff that heading into next week I'm going to be looking for. In terms of the quarterbacks, I'm looking for Bo Nix next week to kind of carry that same momentum that he had in this game, make similar good decisions coming out, not putting the ball in harm's way. He did put the ball in harm's way that one play up the seam to Greg Dulcich. That was not a great ball, but besides that, he was really good in putting the ball where it needed to be and making good decisions. I'm looking for that to continue. Same thing with Zach Wilson. I thought Zach Wilson was really good with that. Still had some issues, still had that drop snap, still, again, just had a couple of plays where it's like, oh man, Zach, he missed a guy on the wrong shoulder, but that's not to take away from the good day that Zach Wilson had. Zach Wilson had a very good day. Looking for him to kind of stack that momentum in camp next week, especially in that joint practice on Friday against Green Bay, and then ultimately into that preseason game. Jarrett Stidham, he was efficient but got limited action. I'm just going to be looking for more reps for Jarrett Stidham. And then more of the young guys. I thought that Jonah Ellis had a good day today. I thought that he was good generating pressure off of the edge. And then obviously his pressure ended up leading to that errant throw that was picked off by Keidron Smith. Really positive stuff from Jonah Ellis. I thought Alex Singleton was awesome today. Bo Nix did very awesome. He really did awesome. Stidham went, I believe it was 4 for 7 passing. Again, got the ball out on time, in rhythm. I don't have any qualms with how Stidham played. He's got an interception on his record now that shouldn't go under his record because it was that horrible drop from Samaje Perine. Samaje is another guy that I'm going to be paying really close attention to next week in that Green Bay game. Is he able to bounce back? Is he able to showcase again to this team like why they shouldn't move on from him? Because with the day that Audric Estime and Jaleel McLaughlin had, Samaje Perine, his seat is getting warmer and warmer and warmer. All right, Broncos country, I am curious, who were your favorite players from today's game? Who stood out to you? Who made an impact? Who do you feel like is making a serious case to get more snaps? Let me know. I am really curious. Again, guys like Jonah Ellis for me, Keidron Smith. I thought that Devon Key and J.L. Skinner both played well. Bo Nix, of course. Zach Wilson looked good. Outside of the fumble, Estime looked good. I thought Blake Watson looked good as well. You just, again, man, cannot have these sloppy plays mixed in. And if they eliminate that, then I'm very comfortable about the direction that this team is heading. It's preseason week 1, so you're naturally going to have those issues. And Sean Payton literally just said in his post-game presser that he was worried about these issues heading into today's game. So hopefully that is able to clean itself up. What's up, Pacific Northwest? Good to see you. Good to see you. Maverick said Bo Nix looked amazing, and Blake Watson. Zach Wilson looked good. Jonah Ellis looked good. So yeah, I mean, it feels like those are all the guys that get gold stars for today's game. But I think that the biggest boost of confidence that we can get from today's preseason win was how well Bo Nix played. Obviously, it's too early to name him the next franchise quarterback or crown him as the savior for the Denver Broncos, but today was certainly an encouraging performance, and I don't think that Bo Nix is going to relinquish the starting job after this. I think that this was the one start Jarrett Stidham was going to get. Bo Nix is officially the starter for the Denver Broncos now. I'm curious to see if starters even play in the final preseason game against Arizona, but Sean Payton made it clear that starters will play in the Green Bay game even after we have joint practices with them. So, yeah, man, this I feel like was the perfect opportunity for Bo Nix, and he took advantage of that opportunity. Crumble said, I'd like to see Troy Franklin get more targets next week, for sure. That was probably one disappointing thing, is we didn't see Troy Franklin really at all today. He was very quiet. So he's going to be a guy I'm going to keep an eye on next week. And then Ioma Uwazurike is another guy I'm going to keep an eye on next week. He is probably going to make his NFL debut, or his debut since his suspension during that Green Bay game. So I'm going to be watching Ioma Uwazurike to see if he's able to translate some really good plays he's made since he's gotten back to training camp into in-game situations. He's got something that you can't teach, and that's just raw power and raw strength. So going to be definitely keeping an eye on Ioma Uwazurike. This was not a great game for the punting competition. The Broncos only punted twice. Riley Dixon got both of those punts, so wouldn't be surprised at all if we saw Trenton Gill get some more work at punter next week against Green Bay. Those are all things that I'm going to be watching. But overall, again, not happy about the turnovers, not happy about the penalties, but very happy about Bo Nix, very happy about the run defense, very happy about how our young core played, our draft picks. I thought that at the second boundary corner spot, both Riley Moss and Damari Mathis had good days today. I still think that that battle is neck and neck, even with that tweet from Benjamin Albright today stating that it's basically Riley's job to lose. I thought that Damari made a good case in this game for him to still be in contention to get that role. So that's another thing that we're going to continue to monitor, is how does that second boundary corner spot shake out. All right, Broncos country, we're getting close to the 30-minute mark here, so we're going to probably wrap things up. I'm going to go ahead and post the post-game presser onto YouTube, all of that good stuff, and record another blurb video or two here later on. But very impressed with what we saw today from Bo Nix, and that is the most positive thing that I feel like we can take away from the day. All right, Broncos country, before we dip out of here, I would really appreciate it if you could do me a big favor and leave a like on this stream, as well as subscribe to the channel. Those are both free and easy ways to show your support. It helps tell YouTube to push out these streams and push out these videos, helps us get seen by more and more members of Broncos country just like you and me. Maverick says we got the GPS Bowl #2 next week. Grassy Perna Bowl, that's going to be really fun. And next week, we will be at the game. We will be at Empower Field at Mile High, bringing live coverage, pre- and post-game streams from the stadium. You guys know the drill by now. Hopefully, you guys can tune in for that next week. And we will be back streaming the games, obviously, week 1 of the regular season. All of the home games, we attend in person. All of the road games, we stream here on the channel. All right, guys. Thank you so much to Crumble Cookies, to Maverick, to Manny, Pacific Northwest, to Ben, and to Rodney, and to D-Rock for tuning in. I really appreciate it, guys. Be sure to leave a like on the stream. And until next time, I am your host, Gage Madrid.